get to say, what is this going to ultimately look like? What type of textures, what type of colors, what type of so on and so forth. And then
love those customers because they already come in believing in a system that I believe in.
Mitch gives the best wireframes that you could ever ask for. They are just amazing.
About like struggling with kind of like faith and culture and stuff, which I honestly hadn't struggled with a whole lot to that point when I first read it, but later in life did. So I thought it would be interesting to just talk through our process a little bit. You know, me and you have done this a couple dozen times, so it won't be news to you. But just to kind of start from the very beginning of a project, typically the way people find BrandNerd is two ways: referrals, because we have clients that say, "Hey, we've been working with them, and they're doing a great job. Go talk to Mitch, go talk to BrandNerd." The second way is through StoryBrand certification. So Donald Miller of kind of a well-known name in some circles, I would say particularly in business owners nowadays, marketers. He's well known for his book, Building a Story Brand.
Yeah, even in Christian communities and Christian circles too.
Exactly. So that was the other circle is that Christian. So when I was in college, he put out a book called Blue Like Jazz that was huge. I bought a copy just to be cool, and then I read it, and I was like, oh yeah, I get why this is such a big thing. I mean, it was very much about like struggling with kind of like faith and culture and stuff, which I honestly hadn't struggled with a whole lot to that point when I first read it, but later in life did, and remember it being particularly helpful. But he started this company, StoryBrand, that eventually became Business Made Simple. So he's got this whole platform. I'm StoryBrand certified. I have been for 5 years. In the first episode we ever released, I talked to Randy Peterson, who's also a StoryBrand guide, and we really unpack it. So I won't unpack it too much, but that's one of the ways people find me, and I love those customers because they already come in believing in a system that I believe in, and so we're already speaking a similar language. You know, obviously I'm the expert, but they've already started to kind of piece it together, and usually they really just need me to come in and simplify it and find the themes of their story that really make sense. And that's what the process is for any project. We call it the strategy phase. You know, I like 3 steps. It's a StoryBrand thing, so we break it down into 3 phases: strategy, phase 1; design is phase 2; and then development / execution is phase 3. And then of course we kind of tack on like a phase 4, which is ongoing. You know, because marketing is never done.
Or updates, all that kind of stuff fall under that.
So you sat on numerous strategy sessions with me. We call it a strategy workshop, where we start going over all of their business initiatives, the history of the business. We really want to get a good understanding of who they think their target customer is. We go, hey, who is your best customer? As in most profitable, as in most fun to work with? Are they the same? Are they different? Is there a segment that you're trying to get into? You know, because it's not always like, hey, we need to just do the same thing. Sometimes like, no, we need to do something new. So is there something you want to expand into that you want to be kind of the main theme of your business? And then we get into the messaging process. We use the StoryBrand framework because it's based on story. It's based on age-old principles that work psychologically. It's why, Coca-Cola, their commercials don't hardly say anything about the beverage. It's all about the experience, the fun you'll have with friends, the refreshing beverage with a polar bear drinking it. I mean, like they've got these neat stories that they tell. You see it in a lot of companies, beverage, adult beverage, there's party brands, there's America brands, there's all these different brands. And there's about storytelling. So that's that whole first strategy. And then there's some like more nerdy stuff that we get into, like information architecture and site mapping and all that stuff.
So in short, under strategy, design, and development are a list of other things that we're doing. Those are just the big
it's a big workshop, and then we take that, we run with it as creatives, as idea people, we come back to the business owner and say, here's what we're thinking. Does this make sense? Here's the goals you gave us, and here's how we think we can achieve those goals with you based on our experience and research. And once we reach a consensus on the game plan, then we move into design. And design is kind of, again, another kind of catch-all term because there's a lot that goes on there. Usually for me, it starts with wireframing. We take that message and we put it into a wireframe. Typically it's multiple pages, but we start with the home page because that is the gateway of your website to everything else. And we want to lay out that story on one page in a way that is super compelling for people. And then, there's other pages that we need to wireframe, but let's skip straight to the part where I hand you a wireframe. And
best, I'll tell you what, any web designer, Mitch gives the best wireframes that you could ever ask for. They are just amazing. I almost said delicious, but that's a weird way to describe
it's a strategic document for me.
Right. And the reason why I say that is because I've received wireframes from people that are just half baked.
Sure.
And when I get a wireframe from you, I know it's 90% there, and I feel really confident. There's nothing worse than doing a lot of work and putting work into something that you're unsure if it's really going to land there. And with you, you take the time to do all that upfront work, do the strategy. So when you hand me the wireframe, typically you have majority of the copy already in there. And you have just like some outlines, some basic shapes. Here's what I'm thinking as far as layout. And then I have the opportunity to take that, the build of a house, right? You're giving me the skeleton, right? A bunch of 2x4s everywhere connected. But then I get to say, what is this going to ultimately look like? What type of textures, what type of colors, what type of so on and so forth. And then I'm able to bring all that. Right. So my tool of choice has historically been Adobe XD for working for web stuff. That's what we've done. I will eventually be working in Figma, right? That's the goal. And then you do a lot of mostly development and Webflow. So Figma's amazing. I know a lot of people who they've dropped Photoshop and Illustrator and solely do stuff in Figma.
Sure.
So I'm excited about diving into Figma a lot more. And we can talk about that as we...
It's part of the Adobe family now. They got bought by Adobe. So like it'll start to integrate with everything. We love Webflow because of its simplicity and also because I'm not a trained web developer. I'm a marketer who learned how to develop websites, originally on WordPress, which is the most common web platform. It's open source. It's got its pros and cons. I love WordPress in theory. Building WordPress is tough. We love Webflow because of its SEO capabilities, site speed, all of that. But Figma can translate into Webflow, which is why we're rethinking our processes regarding that. But we've had really good success with XD too.
Yeah. No, that's the design. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse. It's like I get to look at the strategy and consistently say, how do I design this in a way that points back to that strategy?
Yeah.
I want to point back to that strategy. I want them to see the design and say, based off of what Mitch said in our strategy workshop, this design makes sense.
Exactly.
It might not be what I was expecting.
Right.
But it does make sense.
And one of the awesome things about starting with messaging and storytelling is then when you're designing, you get to take that story and that message and you go, what does this look like?
What does it look like? I'm the illustrator to a storybook.
Right.
And
when we get to do a logo, like we're basing it off of, we already know so much about this company. There's so much we can pack into this visual representation of this company. Whether, even if it's in the most simplest form, like the reason we rounded off this letter is because, we want it to be more accessible because that's one of the key words for your brand or something, just things like that.
Matters.
And then we get into development, and development's a very nerdy part of things. This is why people hire people like us, because they're like, this is where I just don't know what to do. And there's a lot of great tools out there that'll help you. There's the Squarespace and Wix, and all the time people are coming to me going, hey, I need a small website for my XYZ. Can BrandNerd help me with that? And I'm like, honestly, I can't compete with $25 a month if you want to go sign up for Squarespace. It might be less than that, frankly, and they'll give you a theme. You just plug it in. I was like, if you want me to help you with the content, we can definitely help. Right. But for the price point you're talking about, don't hire me. You're going to get way more valuable way more value out of going over there. So yeah, this is where we actually build out the entire website in a beta mode, which is essentially taking your designs, my content, and putting it into a website. And because we have the content already there, some companies do it where the development happens before the content, which I think is backwards, but that's the way they do it. The beta development is very much like, okay, yeah, I approve. This is how the website should function. Ours, it's almost done.
Yeah. The
only thing left to do is really like fill out the content. Like, we're not going to load all of your old blog posts if you're migrating a website. We're not, and then we get into that, and then obviously launch and live testing. We have a rigorous testing process. And then a 30-day bug fix, because as much as you test, there's always going to be little things that pop up, and we include that built into our packages so that you don't have to worry. You got a full month of sending us emails of little things you want to change, and you don't have to worry about that. And then we get to the end of the project, and some of the things that we can help you with moving forward is that content creation. We help with search engine optimization. If there's certain keywords you want to go after, that's how we build our content campaigns around keywords. Because like, you want to be an expert in this field, let's create content. Let's do that.
And that's a really exciting part of it. That's where it starts to open up and feels like, all right, now what do we do with this thing, right? Like, it's like when you get into like a really fast car, you're like, all right, the cars, we help you, we help you get the car. Now you're in the driver's seat. Where do you want to go? Right.
Exactly.
That's that part of the process.
Right.
In my mind, I literally physically feel that when we were done with the website, and then they're like, now we're just saying, all right, now we can just help you write blogs, create content. That's a really exciting part to be.
If you enjoyed this Brand Nerd podcast clip, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. In the meantime, here are additional videos you might find illuminating.